Let's have a look at what else is grabbing headlines here in France. Alison Sargent's with us here on set. And Alison, we're going to start with the latest round of revelations from the Paradise Papers. This concerns yet another household name. We were talking about Apple earlier in the programme, but this is Nike, isn't it?
That's right, Stuart. That swoosh symbol and their slogan, "Just do it," is known worldwide. And now Le Monde wants Nike to be known worldwide also for fiscal evasion. Le Monde is part of that international group of journalists working on the Paradise Paper revelations. You can see their headline today, Nike's aggressive fiscal planning to avoid taxes in Europe. Now, these revelations show that Nike has, among other things, used a loophole in Dutch law that has allowed them to lower their tax on profits in Europe to less than 2%. That is significantly less than what the average European company pays, which is 25%. Now, how did they do it? Well, part of it actually has to do with that famous swoosh sign of theirs, because it turns out Nike has been paying itself to use its own brand. And these payments shifted revenue initially out of Europe and then allowed them to shift it into this Dutch gray area where the money is no longer subject to taxes. Now, Le Monde reports that Nike is going to have to rethink this strategy, though, because the EU is going to force the Netherlands to close its tax loopholes by 2020.
Does sound a little bit sneaky, doesn't it? Now, the French papers, they're pretty outraged by these revelations. For Le Monde, it's not just about the money, though.
Right, this is about inequality, injustice, and ultimately about democracy. That's what Le Monde says in its editorial today. The paper says some people may be wondering why news organizations across the world are making such a big scandal out of practices that are not actually illegal. Well, Le Monde says our societies are not built only on law, but are held together by an even more important cement, which is trust. And the paper says we can't live in a world where having money allows you to buy your way out of contributing to the common good. Similar opinion in France's communist paper today. L'Humanité talks about a paradise of shame. The paper uses quite strong language in this editorial, saying these financial practices reveal a cynical greed that is downright revolting.
Another story of revelation in the French press today. Now, this is about Turkish factory workers at Zara. Now, apparently they attempted to warn shoppers that they were being mistreated. Is that right?
Right, Stuart. And they did this by shoving notes into clothing that was sold at stores in Turkey. These notes said, quote, "I made the item you were about to buy, but I didn't get paid." It's a really interesting story. You can read about it in Libération today. These notes were found at the beginning of the month in a Zara store in Istanbul. They came from workers who were once working at the Bravo textile factory that makes clothes for several stores, including Zara and Mango. You might have heard of that brand as well. This factory closed suddenly about a year ago, and workers say they are still owed about 3 months of salary. Libération also reminds us that 2 million people work in the textile industry in Turkey, including many Syrian refugees. And this latest report is sort of a sign of larger problems that have been going on in the textile industry in Turkey. Previous investigations have revealed that many workers are also minors, and many make far less than the minimum wage.
Let's move on to something completely different now. Front page of Libération now. They're focusing on a public health scandal.
Right, so from air pollution to pesticides, Libération is tired of seeing victims of toxic poisoning being ignored by the government. The paper reminds us that there are a slew of cases going through French courts right now of people who have contracted illnesses from things like asbestos poisoning, but also something that's seemingly innocuous as air pollution. Now, Libé blames the government for slow action on these cases, although they do point out that even the EU has actually noticed what's going on in France and has filed a case against the city of Paris for violating Europe's 2008 directive on air pollution.
And finally from Alison, I'm shocked at this. I can't believe it. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, of course, just in case you didn't know, he's been at the Elysée for 6 months now. 6 months after his election, papers still trying to define the president, aren't they?
It feels like only yesterday we were wondering, is he right? Is he on the left?
6.
I know.
Okay.
Because this was, you'll remember during the campaign, that was one of the key questions, was Macron, he says, you know, he's neither right nor left, but really, which one is he? Well, 20 Minutes today is wondering if Macron is au fond à droite, deep down, is he really on the right? They seem to think they figured it out. And L'Opinion actually agrees with 20 Minutes that he's kind of skewing towards the right. You can take a look at this cartoon on their front page today. We see Macron drawn as Popeye, the popular comic hero.
It's quite a similarity.
You can see, I know, right? It actually, yeah,
it works.
It's a good character for him. You can see his right bicep is looking pretty pumped up there, and that doctor is telling him, you know, you have a slight hypertension on the right, but it's nothing to worry about. And Macron's saying, hey, see, to his girlfriend. But his girlfriend friend Olive Oil, who's dressed as, you'll notice, La Marianne, the symbol of the French Republic. Well, she actually looks a little bit worried.
She does indeed. That is an incredibly good cartoon that works very well. Thank you very much, Alison. Alison, back with the papers. Of course, international ones in a couple of hours' time.